Hi all again, it's AC Dodd here and welcome to part 3 of the CMC tuning demo. We continue to get this one dialed in. So what we've now done is we make sure that that's fueling at that point. What we haven't done is adjusted the fueling at the top end, which I'm going to do now. And the other thing is, what we also haven't done is look at the accelerator pump effect. So if you look at that, watch what happens when I open the throttle. Out, right? So if you're driving a car along and you want to accelerate, what should happen to the fueling when you put your foot down? It should go from cruise lean to full power rich and stay there. Okay, so the way you set up an SU is it's not only load sensitive, but it's mixture sensitive. So when you take the foot off from cruise, it needs to be lean, so it's efficient, and then when you push your foot down, it needs to bring on the fueling up to maximum power. All right, so that when you pull out and overtake, the moment you hit that pedal, it gives you full power fueling and the car goes. At the moment, sounds good, doesn't it? It's not. Right? Sounds good, doesn't it? Right? Here's useless. That's not any good. So what we'll do is we'll change the oil, and then I'll show you what it sounds like when it's actually got the right oil in it. Okay? We'll turn it off. Now in the case of this one, we might have a problem with it. So I might have to change the piston damper. But I don't know that until I have a look at it. So take that out. So let's address this one now. So we can see we've got a problem, yeah? So every time I open the throttle, that just flies open and leans out the mix, right? Now some people might think, well, how can it lean out the mix? Because obviously, if it flies open, it's pulling the needle out of the jet. Well, the problem is this is supposed to be a constant depression. Now, if you open that up, the depression drops over the jet, right? And you pull less fuel off. That's what the lean out is, and that's what the bog is when you've got no or insufficient oil. And I'd say this is a classic example. Brand new carburetor from SU with brand new SU oil is useless, right? You can't just fit stuff out of a box, pour oil in and expect it to work. You have to understand what it needs and make it do what you want. And there's only one way to do that, and that's measurement. Because you can't possibly understand what's going on unless you measure it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some thick engine oil in it, and if this won't slow it down, I'm going to have to put a new piston damper in. So this is 2050 engine oil. So we'll see what that does. Nothing, right? So that's a faulty carb. So that was supplied in a faulty condition, all right? And this is what I'm saying. And the only reason I know that is because I've done quite a few of these carburetors that are new that have got a damper problem. Again, just because it's new doesn't mean it's any good. So what I'm going to do is I've got replacement dampers with me.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you're enjoying the 26th Riviera Run. The Fire Brigade are currently setting up a demonstration at the back of the showground, and it's 11 o'clock on the seafront. If you find a way to the showground and turn right past the hub box, you'll be able to see the demonstration from there. Thank you.
Just because it's new don't mean it's any good, right? So what I'm going to do, pull the top off, use the original top that came with it because it's fitting better than the new one. And now we've got a piston damper that goes in and screws in. All right, just because it's new doesn't mean it's any good. Right, now the other thing we got, watch this. Right, so it's just the opposite, totally different, same oil. Right, again, what oil goes in the dashpot? I think you asked me that. Right, so what oil goes in the dashpot? No. No. That's engine oil. Right, that's way too thick for that one. Right, we just add engine oil in it with the other damper, and it was that's my point I'm trying to say. Forget the oil, it's the parts, and then the oil goes in to make them work. All right, I might also have to modify these things, right, to make them work with the available oils. But in this case, now we've gone from one extreme to the other, right? Haven't changed the oil, still 2050, right? All we've done is change the parts, and that's the point, right? The tolerances on the parts make a bigger difference than the oil. So you need to select the parts first, and the last thing you do is the oil, right? So now I'm going to thin that down, okay? Because that's going too quickly, too slowly, sorry, beg your pardon.
Get them mixed up with the ones in the kitchen. Yeah.
So let's put some 530 oil in it and see what that does. Right.
Smoother than an apple unboxing.
It's rising a bit quicker, right? But we've now got a problem, is it's quite slow dropping, all right? So that was the damper that come out of the packet. So now what we're going to have to do is modify the damper to make that drop quickly. The problem with the damper and the drop rate is when you're accelerating through the gears, when you're in third gear and your foot's hard on the floor, you're there for a while, pulling up top of third gear, change gear. How fast does it take you to go between third and fourth gear? Second? Half a second? Yeah? Let's say a second, right? So if that piston doesn't go from full open to the position you need it in when you hit fourth gear, you're going to get a big flat spot, all right? So one of the problems that you'll find when you set up a Mini for performance, or any SU for performance, is the factory weren't interested in that, so they slowed it down, right? So you couldn't race through the gears, yeah? They made it to go to the shops. Little granny, pop them down the road, touching the throttle, right? Drives nice. Put your foot down, flat timing, and they do all these other little tricks to ruin your fun, all right? So what we now need to do is to change it so that we have our fun, yeah? So it's brand new, remember that, it's a brand new one. So we take a file to it. This is how we tune, right? We modify stuff. You don't just take shit out of a packet and fit it. That's the biggest problem with people and Minis, is they take things out of a packet, put it in, why isn't it working? Well, you haven't made it work. In order to make an A-series or an SU work, you need to understand how it works and then make it do what it needs to make the performance that you want, all right? It doesn't come out of a packet knowing that. It's a mechanical device, you need to make it do it. What we're now going to do is we're going to file some flats on that to increase the oil path.
If you'd like to find your way to the entrance of the showground, turn right, head down towards the hub box. You can get a good view from there of the R&I boats in action just off the beach. Thank you.
So what this is going to do is increase the oil flow by on the drop rate. So the drop rate will increase, meaning we get rid of the flat spot between gear changes. Trouble is with this, in a field, never looks as nice. I've got a nice grinder at home, makes it all nice. But in this, all you can do is you file flats on it, really. So, file some flats on it. Obviously, we need to get the wrap off the end. So, same oil. Right, faster. Not perfect. So what we're going to do is we're just going to adjust that a bit more. There might also be some dirt up the inside, so we're going to clean that out as well.
How come that doesn't affect it rising?
Because it's a two-way valve. The valve, that damper controls the rising rate and also the drop rate. And that, again, people don't understand how the basics of a carburettor work, and they think that just turning a screw will make it run better. And it's like, no. You've got spring, you've got the tolerances of the components inside, you've got the oil, you've got the design of the piston damper, yeah, you've got the needle itself, and you've got the car, how well the engine pulls on the carb, the size of the engine, the camshaft that's fitted in the engine, the timing. How do you know? How does anybody know what it needs? Measure it. It tells you what it needs. The engine tells you what it needs itself, right? And when you get it right, you can hear it. Yeah. So when I read that earlier, after we'd modified the needle, you could hear the difference. Yeah, it's smooth, right? And that's because it's now not misfiring; it's getting the fuel it needs to combust properly. So what we're now going to do, let's do it again. A bit more.
So would the spring will affect that rise and fall?
Yeah, but nothing like the oil, right? Because obviously the spring's pushing on it. So the more spring, yeah, I understand what you're talking about, but you're talking ounces. You know, difference is 4.5 to 12 ounces. It's nothing, all right? In reality, you can tune this to give you exactly what you need, and anyone, if you put 3 springs in it on that previous one, wouldn't make any difference because the force is just not there. Hang on. The other thing I want you to understand is you don't just go back and take your piston, your damper out and file flats on it. You only do this if it needs it, right? This is all about you understanding what it needs, all right? So every car needs different set of modifications to make it work. And the other thing that I'm trying to show you here is when you take stuff out of a packet, it's not right. And neither should you expect it to be right, because the tolerances involved are so small that it's never going to be right. It's impossible to get it right. Yeah? Because, you know, it's a bit like gambling. Yeah? It's odds. So the other thing is, notice you put that in there, red down. Problem with that is when you get oil on it, the red comes off. So if you put them back in that way up, the next time somebody gets it and they want to take the top off, you'll be able to see what colour spring it is. Yeah. Right, see, much faster, right? So that's plenty fast enough now. So that is now going to work properly. So we're going to modify the needle for the top end of the rev range and a little bit of progression. Of course, the bit I'm not telling you here is how much and where I, you know, how much to take off, but that's my knowledge. Yeah. I also do training courses, so if anybody wants to learn how to do this or set these up on dynos, I also do training for people for that. They run so much better when they're fueling properly, and that's where people, you know, most people that I come out to when I do on the road tuning, most of them only know me by they've watched the videos, and a lot of people are doing it. Oh, my mate said come and, you know, call you out because it's good and all the rest of it, but you know, okay, but then they'll tell you, but he runs fine. And when you open the bike, it's horrific, you know. And so you tune it and they're like, I had no idea. And that's why I do the videos, and people can see what happens around the country when I go to tune cars and see people's reactions. Because at the end of the day, this is the difference between cars that run okay and cars that run to the point where you are, what's the word? Destroying the engine for how badly it's running. Yeah. And then once you tune them and they run right, they'll just look at you and go, blimey, I never knew that they would go so well. And even doing this to a standard engine makes a hell of a difference, because a standard engine is very poorly set up. The fuel's changed so much over the years, and things have, the fuels typically lean the mixtures out, so it just makes the cars that were lean even worse. The other thing is just to when I've gone to different countries, I normally find that the fueling has changed, right? So if you go to like Italy, that I've done, all the needles that we would have in this country, you need a much leaner needle for the same fueling, right? So the fuel's different in different countries. And when you say, oh, it's this needle, it's that needle, you know, if you go to America and do the same thing, it'll be completely different. Yeah. So, and that's the only way to tune these cars is to measure it. Yeah.
Is the fuel worse? Does it burn worse? Obviously, there's a load of minis going out there soon. Is it better to take an octane booster or something with you?
No, it will just run rich.
It'll just run rich. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, can't help that.
No, that's fine.
So what we're now going to do is look at progression and full power, and I'm also going to go for a rougher grade of paper. So I'm going to take a bit more. And now you'll notice I'm taking a lot more off. All right, so we're not just taking a tiny little bit, and that's because take off up here, tiny bit makes a huge difference. Take it off down here, a lot makes not so much of a difference. So you've got to take a lot more off. So the sensitivity of the needle changes depending on where it is. It also changes depending on the size of the carburetor, the size of the engine. Yeah, just to add even more fun. So that's why everybody who tunes a car everyone wants it digital. You know, it's this for this, it's that for that, it's this for this, it's that for that. No, it is what it is for your car. That's the best way of saying it, and you need to measure it. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it a bit more fuel up to progression, or through progression, and we're going to give it a lot more fuel at the top end. As you can see, I'm spending a lot of time at that end of the needle. All right, so we'll just check our progress. My pen, there it is. And obviously this one's taking me a lot longer because I'm trying to explain and show you a lot what's going on. So I've taken 1.5 thou off the needle. So we need more. So another 1.5 thou. Okay, so we're about 2.5 thousandths richer at the full power point than we were before we started. We've also got a taper. I've increased the taper by 1 thou or so on the way down. All right, so in terms of where we are, that is going to be somewhere near right, and it will run a whole load better than what it did. And we just polish it to finish. All right, so when you look at a needle, if a needle isn't like that, so if you have a look at that, how smooth that is. Go and have a look. See, if it's rough, it'll soar into the jet. So you need to make that the same sort of surface finish as it was when it was original. Okay, no flat spots in it. So we'll put that back in now, and this should be a lot better. And you will now hear the benefit of that now, because when we'll be able to rev it, it will sound as it should do. So remember the sound before, it sounded all right, didn't it? Hopefully it will sound really good now. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that part 3. There's one more part to come, so stay tuned, like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.